Welcome back to another episode of
We Are Geek.
I am Josiah Swanson,
And I'm Ben Hendry.
and we are here to talk about something super epic.
Super exciting.
Super
Very exciting news.
awesome. So, you know what? Let's just forget all the frivolities today,
Let's jump right in.
and let's just jump right into it. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
So today we're going to talk about the Warcraft trailer.
Warcraft.
At first we were going to talk about the Warcraft trailer for a little bit, and then, talk about like fantasy movies in general. But then we're like, nope.
No,
We're
can't
just
do that.
We're just going to dedicate the whole episode to Warcraft.
Because the Warcraft trailer was amazing, in other words, and it
Yeah.
deserves 12 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I can't explain how excited I am for that movie.
Oh, me neither. And I mean, he hasn't played the game. I have. So it's like, pumped.
Yeah.
Pumped.
I mean, I'll admit I'm kind of a new fan to Warcraft. I've never played the games ever. But this movie, I've been excited for this movie ever since Ben told me about it coming out and stuff. And so I'm just really excited for this movie because it's a fantasy movie, like a high fantasy movie like Lord of the Rings. That's like one of my favorite genres. And I'm just so excited for this movie.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited. I mean, when we watched the trailer yesterday, I was just like, I was shaking before I watched it because I was just so excited. Because I'm waiting for another fantasy movie, like Lord of the Rings, to like break the bad fantasy movie record, and the same with video game movies. All the video game movies up until now have been terrible.
Yep.
So if this breaks it, that leaves open room for people to make more and to feel confident in making video game movies.
Exactly. Yep. And I hope that this movie does really well.
I agree. I really hope it does well.
There's not likely that it won't do well.
No, I mean it's a big, epic blockbuster. I mean, you're gonna get tons of people, whether they know about Warcraft or not, to go see it probably because It's coming out in June. I can't think of any other big movies that are coming out in June. So it's right there in its own little spot. So people are going to be like, hey, everyone else is going to see this. Let's go see it. And
Warcraft already has a huge fan base. Like a ridiculously huge fan base.
It does. The online game has millions of players.
Yeah.
So they'd have nothing to worry about with the fan base. So you just got to get the good word of mouth from those fans to other people. Mm-hmm. To make new fans of the series.
Exactly. Like me.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, what was the thing from the trailer that stuck out the most to you?
Actually, there's a main city in the game called Stormwind, which is just kind of like a big medieval fantasy city, kind of like Minas Tirith. And the guards there, the Stormwind guards, the armor done by Weta Workshop is phenomenal. And the city looks fantastic. That and then the griffins that the Alliance ride, they look really cool.
Yeah. Like just the visual effects just really blew my mind. Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't quite sure because even in like the Hobbit and stuff, some of the visual effects, especially in the third one, were just terrible.
They were sloppy. I mean, they obviously didn't spend enough time.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the fears that I had at first because, the orcs, okay, that's one thing that I want to say real quick.
Yeah. The
orcs. A lot of people, complain because they went the visual effects route of doing them, but there's no physical possible way that you could make an orc with like a human using practical effects.
Well, you couldn't use prosthetics. They're
huge.
8 to 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
And they've got huge arms and just huge bodies. If you tried to put that many prosthetics on you, you'd collapse. And you'd probably die of heat exhaustion.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So,
yeah,
the motion capture, visual effects route of doing it is a great way to do it. And there are going to be people who complain about it looking like the game. But even if some parts do look like the game, you got to be like, okay, this is based off a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some parts may look like a game because it's based off of one. Whereas Lord of the Rings wasn't based off a game. So and they use tons of practical effects back then, and the orcs in that are humanoid. They look very human. They don't look like another creature. In other words.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what they should have stuck with for The Hobbit too. But
they should have. But The Hobbit was just. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like, which I'm glad that they went the motion capture route for Warcraft
instead of animating them entirely.
Yeah.
Because if they had hand animated them entirely, they wouldn't have had the authentic human motion.
Yeah.
Like the way the human people walked when they were doing motion capture.
And they even had to like train the people how to walk like orcs.
Yep, they had to learn how to walk like orcs. And it was actually the same guy who worked on the Hobbit movies who taught the dwarves to walk like dwarves. He taught these guys to walk like orcs.
Yeah, yep. And, even movies like the new Planet of the Apes movies, that's all motion capture. All the apes are motion capture. And especially in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
Some of the best visual effects I've ever seen.
And one thing I do have to say about this movie, from watching the trailer, it looks very similar to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I think it's going to have a similar storyline. Where it's two races. They just want to survive, and then there's the one guy on the bad side, on the orc side, and there's the one guy on the human side that wants to eradicate each other, and then there's the guys that want to work together because they want to work together and they want to live peacefully, just surviving, and that's just like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, especially that movie. So it was reminiscent to that, and I thought that was really neat. Yeah. And so I think the story is going to be really good.
Yeah, great stories for sure. And some of the shots you could tell still needed some work.
Yeah.
But they still got a few months to work on that. And all the close-up shots of the orcs just
those were the best.
Whoa! Because
then you could see the detail.
Yeah.
That was given. That detail was really, really well done.
Yep. And like we were just talking about yesterday, some of the shots definitely had kind of the Lord of the Rings feel.
Yeah, they did.
I'm totally not against. So.
No, I'm not against that at all.
Epic sweeping mountain shots and cities.
Exactly, cities. And then there was one shot, which if you haven't seen the trailer, by the way, I would suggest go watch it.
Pause our video right now and go watch it.
Good trailer.
Come back.
Yeah, come back. Yep. So now we're assuming you've watched the trailer. There's one shot, where the main character bends down and he's like looking at something. I was like, that looks just like Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. I was like, with his sword, he's like holding his sword and he's looking at something. I was like, that looks just like Aragorn.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. That it's kind of reminiscent of Lord of the Rings. And I'm assuming that the filmmakers do have a lot of inspiration from Lord of the Rings because when they're making a film, fantasy film, because that was kind of the biggest name in fantasy, and that's kind of where every other fantasy movie's tried to be like Lord of the Rings, and they usually failed. What they're doing with this movie, I think they're trying to be their own thing, but they are inspired by Lord of the Rings, which is really neat.
Yeah. And honestly, Lord of the Rings is the best fantasy movie to be inspired by, for sure.
It is. It's the best fantasy movie.
Yeah.
After that, there hasn't been a good fantasy movie, really.
I know.
I mean, there just hasn't.
That's why we're so sad about that and so excited for this movie, because we both are raving fans of fantasy.
That's right.
And, we've been waiting for this pretty much our whole lives, ever since Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, so. And honestly, if I have no doubt that this is going to be the best fantasy movie since. I mean, there's been a few, like Seventh Son and The Last Witch Hunters, movies like that are in the fantasy area. Even the Chronicles of Narnia movies. Yeah. You can tell from this trailer to this movie that is going to have a better story than any of those. And story and characters is where you really need to go right.
Definitely.
Especially in fantasy. If you don't have good story and characters, it's not going to be a good movie. Exactly. Because stories and characters are what drive the movie. Visual effects don't. You can have the best visual effects in the world, but if you don't have good characters and good story, it's not good.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is what Seven Sons suffered from. And a lot of those other, low B, C grade fantasy movies that have come out.
Yeah. And by fantasy, obviously, like Star Wars is technically fantasy.
Science fantasy.
We're not including that though. We're talking more like high fantasy stuff.
We're talking high fantasy swords, goblins, orcs, trolls, dragons, stuff like that.
So don't freak out about that.
No, we're not saying Star Wars is bad. You know me. If you know me, Star Wars is one of my favorite franchises of all time.
Yep.
So.
And another thing not to freak out about is the orcs, because there's some there's obviously it looks like there's gonna be some romance between like humans and orcs and stuff like that.
The one she's the one character, I forget her name. She is half human. Mm-hmm. She's half human, half orc.
And some of the orcs, are obviously have good intentions and stuff. These orcs are not all like Lord of the Rings orcs. No. Where the orcs from Middle Earth are evil to their very
They
core.
are bred for wickedness. These orcs are just kind of like another race.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like elves are in Lord of the Rings.
So, don't compare this to Lord of the Rings at all. This is its own universe, its own story. So,
And I wouldn't say go in thinking the orcs are going to be bad, because there's going to be orcs that have good morality like the humans.
Yeah, exactly.
And they want to work with the humans because they don't want to cause bloodshed. They don't want to cause needless deaths, which is really cool. But then there's going to be those orcs, who are like, mankind and the humans are evil, so we have to destroy them. Then there's going to be the humans that have no idea what the orcs are or what they are coming for, and they're going to think they're evil, so they're going to attack them. Mm-hmm. It's a classic survival story.
Yep. And obviously, like, my most anticipated movie next year is Civil War, but this movie might beat it. It depends on when the Civil War trailer comes out for me. When I see that, I'll make a better decision. But
and I'm waiting for the Civil War trailer. I mean, this movie comes out in June, and we just got the trailer today. So Civil War comes out the beginning of May. I'm looking for a trailer really soon.
Yeah.
And I know they are going to debut it in theaters in front of The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping at least maybe half a month. At least if we get it by the beginning of December, I'm hoping we at least get it by then. Maybe if not earlier, because I really want to see this trailer. I really want to see what it looks like, if it's if it looks good to me. And I have no doubt Civil War is going to be good. I think it's going to be a really good movie. It's going to be more on the edge of Winter Soldier, which was it was almost more like a political thriller.
Yep.
It didn't seem like a superhero movie, and that's what I'm hoping for with Civil War.
That's what I love so much about it. Like we talked about, we're so excited for this movie because we hope that it revolutionizes not only the video game genre but also the fantasy genre for movies.
Yeah.
So, we're both super pumped about this movie. If you didn't listen to us earlier, go see the trailer now. And I can't contain my excitement.